You are now listening to the History Lesson Podcast with your host, Ringside Robert.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the History Lesson Podcast. Your host, Ringside Robert. And I'll be happy to report there'll be no background noise because it's extremely hot here in Northern California. So you won't hear any trains because the air conditioner is running. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Micky Ward, Arturo Gatti, #1. Fight took place May 18th, 2002. And what a hell of a fight. I got a chance to go over it this afternoon, and I forgot a few things. Wow. But before I get into that, let me plug everybody and all our various things here. You can contact me at Ringside Robert on Twitter or call area code 773-572-7781, and all the history lessons which I do, and all the Ringside Reporter podcast which I'm a part of, will be there. Speaking of Ringside Reporter podcast, that you can hear that every Sunday evening from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, and be sure to call in. The call-in number is area code 323-870-3857. So be sure to mark that down and put that in your phones and put that in your Skype, and be sure to call us every Sunday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. You want to reach the host, Eric Lorda, you can find him at Ringside73 on Twitter, and of course the wonderful website we have set up is ringsidereporter.com. And Beating the Odds with Beeb is a fantastic YouTube channel for Joe Habib, and you can find him at jhabib1 on Twitter. And we're going to do our best here to provide you with nothing but boxing content here on the Ringside Reporter Radio Network. Now, let me move on to a few news and notes. First of all, there was a rumor on Fight News yesterday that Canelo and Triple G were going to put together a deal where they could have fights in between, but both Oscar De La Hoya and Tom Loeffler said, that ain't happening. So Fight News, check your sources. Also, the Terrence Crawford-Victor Postal fight, which occurs on July 23rd, HBO is only expecting $75,000 for pay-per-view. That's all they expect, and they'll be lucky if they get that. It's a hell of a fight, but it's not worth pay-per-view. Anyway, let's move on to Micky Ward and Arturo Gatti. And in the beginning of this fight, Gatti came out in the first couple of rounds and boxed beautifully. And basically won the first 3 rounds, in most judges' opinions. But in the 4th round, Micky Ward came on and did rather well. But at the end of the round, Gatti hit Ward, and it appeared that Gatti had knocked Ward down. But it was ruled a low blow by Frank Cappuccino. And not only did Cappuccino rule it a low blow, but he took a point away from Gatti. And when you viewed it on the replay, the punch was definitely low. So, Ward dominated the 5th. Gatti had good rounds in the 6th and 7th. The 8th was pretty decent, and the 9th was probably the round of the year for that year. Back and forth, and they both were bleeding heavily. Gatti opened up a cut on Ward's eye in the first round, and Ward opened up a cut on Gotti's eye probably in the 6th. And it went back and forth, and interesting scoring here, but I can't argue with it. One judge had it 94-94, one judge had it 94-93, and the third judge had it 95-93, all in favor of Micky Ward. And I can't begin to tell you what a fantastic fight it was. And listening to that today, man, it just reminds me of what classy guys Larry Merchant and Emanuel Stewart were to HBO. HBO, you have to improve your commentating team. Lampley is fine. I can deal with Lampley. Lampley's been there. He is a homer. You have to expect that. But Max Kellerman, you're no Larry Merchant. If you're trying to play the Larry Merchant role, then you need to have some serious discussions with Larry Merchant and do your homework instead of sounding like you're a shill for HBO. I mean, and look, Emanuel Stewart and George Foreman have probably been the two best you've had in the analyst positions on that network. Roy Jones is okay, but Bernard Hopkins, no thank you. Andre Ward, no thank you. Find somebody in there who wants to do this job and take it seriously. One thing I can say about Paulie Malignaggi, you may not like a lot of his opinions, but he knows what he's talking about over on Showtime. But listening to that fight today, it reminded me of what classy guys Larry Merchant and Emanuel Stewart were. I thought it was funny. During the commentating of the fight, you could hear Emanuel Stewart actually acting like the trainer and telling these guys what they should be doing, and he was even getting upset when fighters weren't following his instructions. I thought it was great. Of course, when I've got both fights 1 and 2 on the Ringside Robbie's Boxing Corner. Fight 1 is on option 2, and Fight 2 is on option 4. And as soon as this podcast is done, and hopefully done correctly, it'll be up there, and then I'll update the greeting over there. But man, I miss fights like that, and that's what we're going to cover in this particular podcast. We're going to cover fights from the past, and this was a back and forth affair. And remember, I totally forgot about this. In this particular fight, they had a lousy timekeeper. Like when Cappuccino took the point away in the 4th round, the timekeeper the clock kept running because the referee, Frank Cappuccino, didn't say time. Because when the referee's going to stop the action, the first thing he's supposed to tell the timekeeper, hey, time out, but he didn't do that. So Micky Ward didn't get his 5 minutes that he was supposed to get to recover from the low blow. And then there were several other instances where the timekeeper screwed up in the fight. Like in the last round, it was 2 minutes and 30 seconds instead of 3 minutes. I'm glad they got that straightened out for fights 2 and 3, but I totally forgot about those things. But legendary fight with 2 legendary guys, and next week we'll be covering fight number 2 of this series, and then the week after that we'll be covering fight number 3. Don't forget. On Saturday night, Showtime has a brilliant triple header with Anders Laura and the Charlo brothers. I think Laura will win his rematch against Vanes Martirosyan, and I think one Charlo is going to beat John Jackson, and the other Charlo is going to come up short. Because I think Austin, no doubt Trout, is going to capture that belt. I have no doubt. At least he's not a chump like Mr. Trump. So there you go. And that occurs Saturday, May 21st on Showtime, 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 Pacific. So be sure to tune in for that. That is your main boxing highlight for Saturday. Hey, Oscar, Canelo, let's get that deal signed, shall we? Put your name on the dotted line. I don't want to hear any more rumors about you wanting fights in between. People have called various shows that I either participate in or listen to, and they say, oh, we don't mind if we want Canelo to fight a real middleweight. We want him to fight David Lemieux. We want him to fight, Curtis Stevens. We want him to fight a real middleweight. Well, the first real middleweight he's going to fight will be in September when he has to step in the ring with the killer, 22 consecutive knockouts, one Gennady Golovkin. That is going to be your real middleweight. And let's see if you can handle a 160-pound hard-punching machine. Let's see if you're the true Mexican and you have the cojones to step up to the plate. And Oscar, don't you dare pull a Floyd Mayweather. Don't you dare pull a Floyd Mayweather and try to cherry pick just because he's your biggest money person in your stable. You had guts as a fighter. You didn't avoid people as a fighter. Don't allow your fighter to do that in this case. Okay? Don't allow your fighter to do that in this case. Step up to the plate, sign your name on the dotted line, and let's get this done. No more pussyfooting around. No more taking Amir Khan's or taking James Kirkland to feed your ego. If you're going to hold the WBC lineal middleweight championship of the world, you have to fight Gennady Golovkin, and you have to do it in September, or you have to give up the belt and be considered a coward by your community. Would you like the heat from all the Latinos because you decided to give up the belt and not defend it? You want your Mexican fan base to view you as a coward? Well, then you just go ahead and try to fight somebody else. And by the time I record this show next week, people, we will have a decision on that because the deadline is next week. And I don't want to be Canelo if he decides to put the WBC belt in the garbage can like Riddick Bowe did when Riddick Bowe didn't want to fight Lennox Lewis. But see, Riddick Bowe's an American. He's not a Mexican. Mexican people expect a lot more out of their fighters. So let's get the paperwork signed, shall we? Anyway, next week, Micky Ward, Arturo Gatti, fight number 2. And stay tuned for that. And that's all I've got for this time because I've had to record this a couple of times, and I think it finally turned out good this time. So, and of course, you can leave me suggestions for other fights that you want done in the future. Somebody already left me the suggestion of doing Julio Cesar Chavez, Meldrick Taylor, and we will get to that. But I am going to concentrate on series of fights first. And we did Mayweather De La Hoya last week. We did Gotti and Ward fight 1 this week. Next week we're going to do fight 2. Then we're going to do fight 3, and then I'll be moving on to my next series, which is going to be Israel Vasquez, Rafael Marquez, and they had 4 fights. So I'm going to concentrate on series of fights first. So, but I will take your suggestions. So if you have them, please leave them. And thanks, everyone, for downloading the podcast. Hope you enjoy it. And, again, your feedback is welcome. We'll see you next week. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Getting lost in the music is great, except if you're driving. Nissan's available Intelligent Safety Shield technologies could help you avoid bad drivers. Hurry into your local Nissan store and get great offers during the Safety Today event. Or shop ChooseNissan.com today. Now, back to the music.